it's not just, put up the billboard or put out the teaser or whatever. It's like, we have to condition people. This is a really good idea, but we got to tell them how to watch it. And that was a big hurdle with Blindspotting when we put it out, because I think what I wish, obviously I didn't know then what I know now, but I wish they had marketed the movie as a comedy and then it delivered separately instead of a drama that happened to be funny. And I think we would have, the surprise would have been that it was deeper than it presented itself. And that's a road that's easier for people to get on, but there's a harder barrier for entry for dramas. And I didn't know that. I wasn't in the business. I didn't know it was going to be a thing. I only see the successful ones. I'd never seen how many get forgotten. And then you go to Sundance and you go the year after and you're like, damn, so many movies that are good just fucking die. It's heartbreaking, man. It's also, I'm sure it's been this way for you too, but like, I know I feel this way. I felt this way in music. Now I really feel this way in film and television. And I think it's the mark of somebody who really knows what they're doing. And I'm sure I got this from people who are further along, is like, I don't trust the hype at all, man. If I see something and it's dope filmmaking, I'll reach out to that person, because the hype machine is going to do what it does. But good filmmaking, good storytelling, it may be dead on the fucking floor after the festival. And it's like, I don't care. You're dope. That is dope. And to have independent taste in a hype machine of an industry is like so sacred to me. It's like, I don't care who says that's not tight. That shit was amazing.
Let's Shoot with Pete Chatmon is a podcast on directing for anybody that's, quite simply, ever watched anything. Visit PeteChatmon.com to get your official podcast merch, hoodies, hats, jackets, mugs, and other swag, and learn more about your host.
Let's Shoot with Pete Chatmon is sponsored by the good folks at Scriptation. Scriptation is the Emmy Award-winning app for production that allows you to mark up scripts, transfer notes, generate breakdowns, and so much more. No matter where you fall on the call sheet, Scriptation makes it easy to go paperless, collaborate with your crew, and save hours of time. Go to scriptation.com/Pete to learn more and receive a special offer exclusive to Let's Shoot listeners. Now, on to the show. Welcome to episode 74 of Let's Shoot with Pete Chatmon. Today's guest is the actor, writer, director, poet, and modern-day cowboy, Rafael Casal. Rafael is the rare talent that's great at everything he pursues, while remaining a collaborator who creates an environment for other artists to bring their best to a project. His credits as an actor include Bad Education, Frozen Hearts, and Marvel's Loki. As a writer, he is perhaps best known for Blindspotting, which started as a feature in 2018 and later became a TV series in 2021 on Starz. He also directed 5 episodes of the show. I had the pleasure of working with Rafa on episode 105 of Blindspotting, and there's a sequence, which we will talk about in this interview, that stands at the top of work I'm most proud of. Now, the catch-up.
Catch-up.
This week's catch-up is pretty brief. I finished prep on Grosse Pointe Garden Society and started shooting on Monday, delivered my director's cut on Chicago Fire on Monday as well, and attended the DGA Awards in Los Angeles on Saturday night over the weekend. I saw many, many friends and mentors and directors who have inspired me along the way, and everybody looked good. They were clean. It was black tie, evening gowns, tuxes. Great event. Probably the 5th year that we've gone, and we're making a point to go every year. And I recommend those of you in the DGA to also go. It's a really good time and great to see people, because as directors, you really don't run into each other because we're on a set one at a time. So it's a great time to vibe out. I've also got some developments on our heist film. Nothing concrete to share at this point, but I just figured I'd share that in Hollywood, things are ever changing, and they are changing now. As many of you know, though, I'm pretty active in the DGA, currently serving as co-chair of the African American Steering Committee. I'm also active in the Television Academy, where I serve on the Directors Peer Group Executive Committee. As part of my time on that committee, I have learned that there are many working directors out there that qualify to be members of the Television Academy, but aren't because they don't know the process of joining. So here's a little nudge to push you toward the information, which is available on televisionacademy.com. But as a director, you just need to have a minimum of 2 years within the last 4 years with an on-air credit on 10 episodes of nationally exhibited content. Obviously, you're early in your career and you haven't gotten to the 10 episodes yet. This is a place that you will arrive. But I was well beyond these minimum requirements when I was informed by Michael Spiller, who used to be the governor of our peer group, that I should look into it. And so I did, and that was maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and it's been great. With your membership, you are able to vote in your respective peer group on the Emmy Awards, and there are a variety of resources that you can take advantage of. There are networking events, and there are 31 peer groups across the TV Academy for all of the different disciplines and crafts that come together in these creative arts. So one cool event that our group did last year and that we will be doing again this year, most likely, is a workshop over a couple of days of directing short scenes with actors from the actors peer group. So it's a really great way to meet people, to hone your craft. We're giving each other feedback, critique, and it's just an opportunity to bring each other together creatively. So check out televisionacademy.com. There is a membership fee, but you'll get all the information that you need right there. And so without further ado, let's get to it. This is episode 74 of Let's Shoot with Pete Chatmon, starring Mr. Rafael Casal.
Roll sound.
Speed.
The interview. Take 1.
Yeah, man. So look, welcome to the pod. I don't even know what to call you. Writer, actor, director, poet. What would you go ahead and claim Renaissance man, or would you lean on one of those titles more so than the other?
I don't know. I feel like anytime you title yourself, you just sound like an idiot. I think I think I like saying what it is, whatever faculty I'm in, when I'm doing it. And just focus on that. I think you have to have like the mono focus. Like when I'm directing, I'm like, don't talk to me about any of the other stuff. I'm just doing this.
Right.
I think the writing base gives me access to all the other stuff. So I think I think of myself as a writer first, and then everything else is executing on that writing. And how that happens is how that happens. But I think the self-talk is like, you're a writer. That's where you do everything from.
Right. No, I feel you. It's like that the ecosystem kind of expands from there.
that is the core. And because I'm a part of that act, it seems like it's always the most important. Whereas like, I don't know the experience of like just being an actor who doesn't write, or just being a director who doesn't write. And so I feel a little bit, I think I'll always feel a little bit false in those careers, even though I do them a lot at this point, because I can't fully detach from the other. I can't stop being a writer when I'm acting. I wish I could. There's something liberating about it, but I haven't been able to do it.
Now, does that apply, or does that transfer to when you're acting in something that you didn't write? Are you still looking at that in some way with the writer's eye?
I have to. I think I try to liberate myself when I'm acting. Like I'm on a Netflix show right now that I have nothing to do with, and I trust the writers and I think they're good. I rewrite them every other line, not because it was a bad line, but because I have some, like I'm reading them as a fellow writer, and I'm trying to think of what they're trying to get to. And when people talk about like, get to the core of your character as an actor, I'm looking at the language as a writer and going, what they're trying to make him seem off balance here, or he's unsure of himself here. And so I decide for myself what is sacred and what's not. And that's not always true. Some writers don't like it when you do that.
Right.
But I kind of go, well, this is the reason you wrote this. And so I'm going to honor that. Sometimes you find kinship with the writers. Sometimes you find like a mortal enemy.
How is all of that landing? I must ask.
It depends, right? Like sometimes directors get nervous when you veer off the script because they're worried about people above them. And so the note's not even coming from them as a director. It's coming from the fear of veering a little bit. Some directors, I mean, this, like some directors love play. Some directors hate play. Sometimes there's a time for play, and sometimes
Right.
this just ain't the moment, and
Right.
you've misjudged the moment. And so I
And you
think,
also got to have players, right?
yeah,
Because sometimes you'll be like, oh, this person, and this is more from my films, because in TV, as you know, it's a different
different
dynamic. But
ballgame,
like,
man.
there are actors where I'm like, oh yeah, they can go off page and improv and kill it, and then someone else on the other side of the camera, they can give you 3 words of improv and they're gonna fall right back into the script just because it's their guidepost.
They're pattern people, right? Like I remember this when, for those of you guys who don't know, Pete directed an episode, one of the best episodes we've had of
Oh man,
season one of Blindspotting, right? Episode 6,
yeah.
which is like that's the one that comes up the most. People talk about it absolutely
Mm.
the most. And you did this thing that I had never really occurred to me, where you did this like consistent like wraparound shot.
Oh, at
And
the
I
dining
remember
room
I
table,
remember
yeah.
you were setting it up and I went, this is going to be a nightmare in post. And what
I-
but it was the opposite. The movement meant that I could go anywhere. I
mm,
could pop in whenever I wanted. And I was
right,
getting like 10 shots for the price of like 3 or 4. But
right,
again, like can't do a lot of improv, and you got Jalen who loves
right,
improv, and
right,
you got Candace and Margot who
right,
hate it, and they're
right,
next to each other in the shot.
right. I think though too, like, first off, thank you for that. That was such a fun episode, and even I think one of the things I'm still most proud of was also the dance sequence with Jazz coming through the house to the kitchen, and like it was just such a fun opportunity to interpret.
It's
And
beautiful.
yeah, yeah, it was great. But
If anyone has a chance to check it out, this dance sequence starts out on the street. It's populated by a bunch of our background and our dance crew, and we did the first third of it is in Oakland, in West Oakland, and the last 2/3 of it are in our house in Los Angeles, downstairs and upstairs. And it's the moment where Jasmine's character Ashley has to tell her son that his father is in prison. And there are so many ways this could have been done wrong.
mm, mhm,
This moment could have been cheapened. It could have not landed with the kid. Atticus Woodard did an amazing job.
yeah,
So many things could have went wrong. And you manage this balance of this massive technical feat that split 3 different locations,
mm,
dance, the patience of like the emotional arc of Ashley's character. She takes this
mm,
amazing sip of wine in the kitchen,
beautiful. Yeah,
and then it goes up the stairs and the guys are waiting, and you did this thing that we had talked about, but we never get that much time to talk on set really when we're
right,
building. It's like we get like 4 conversations, which is crazy.
right,
But you did this thing where we were like, if it's done wrong, the men are going to seem menacing. The dancers are dressed
mm,
in prison uniforms, and they're
right,
going to seem scary. But his father is becoming one of these men, so it has
hmm,
to seem beautiful. And I don't know whose idea it was. I just know it was somewhere between like you, me, and Boogs. Someone somewhere in that chemistry, everyone decided that the dancers should sit down at the end.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it happens in the show, and it's like, damn, we nailed
Yeah.
that.
Is it what's beautiful about that too is like, I don't know, I don't know if that was my idea, yours, but that's
No
like
idea.
what happens when that shit is like singing, you know what I mean? And everybody's trying to figure it out. It was because it was
It's
such
one of
an
those beautiful
innovative
moments.
idea.
Everyone's trying to, you don't get a ton of those on a set, and it's always a
Mhm.
gamble every time a director that ultimately you don't really
Mm.
know comes into a world that we're in episode 6. We barely know the show ourselves. We're just getting
Mm.
cooking. And we've had good experiences and bad experiences at that point.
Right.
To have those moments start clicking is though it's that magic that can be very hard to find on a TV set when a
Mm.
director like you, who's like from the feature world also, has to navigate like you're in somebody else's kitchen trying to cook.
Right.
And
Right.
that's a hard episode. Like that episode
Right.
has 2 huge moments that are sometimes the culmination of a whole season, and they're in
Right.
one overly long script because we're overwriters.
That's how you get to it. It was, what was it? Michelangelo. And I don't know if you said this or if I've just heard this and I repeat it, but like, how do you create your statues or whatever the question was. And I removed the rock,
Yeah.
and you just have all these pages, and you remove the pages, you remove the things that don't work to get to, the essence of what's pumping through every page. But maybe as you kind of isolate it and minimize it, you really get to the best parts of it.
I spent that whole first season as the first time I was ever show running a show, and I knew that I was going to direct the last episode. So I had like my study group were all the directors that were coming in before that. I was like, well, if I was in a program, I would shadow or whatever, but like I'm going to shadow these 7 directors. Obviously you're one of those directors. And I took 2 things. I mean, I'm sure I took a lot of things, but I took 2 things right away from watching you work, man. The first one was you were more prepared than anyone. And that's not to say that people were underprepared. Most of the directors we brought on were quite prepared, but you were noticeably prepared, and you were walking around with this iPad and this like tactical thing, which I'm sure everyone calls you out on. And I know, and I bring it up now only because I bought 3 of them.
Right.
I saw you do it, and I went, my man's got the little pen. He's got, and I could see that it was helping you shorten the distance between here to here. It was like, all right, I'm here's my plan. Here's my thought. There's my action. I'm going to figure this out. And I watched that. No one had done that yet. And I saw how little you were. I'm sure you were making decisions on the fly. Of course you were. But it didn't feel like there were gaps. It felt like there were options. And I thought that was really powerful to have a handle on. And the other thing that I noticed is because of those options, anyone else's inexperience or anyone else's or lack of time or we got to cut something didn't really throw you, man. It didn't throw you. And I took that with me after that episode. I was like, it wasn't like you were like overly hands-on with the actors or that you were like hardcore into the post. You did all those things wonderfully, but on set you were very calm and like all of your variables were there. And I remember after you left, I was like, that's how I want people to feel around me. I want people to feel like I got a handle on this.
Yeah, I sincerely appreciate that, man. It was, that was, God, what was that, 2021 maybe? No, before.
Years ago.
It was before
COVID. First time it was during COVID. The first season.
It was during COVID. Oh, it was
in the first year of COVID.
Man, it's right, maybe 2021. Yeah, man. No, it was a pleasure. And like, I will say all the time, it starts from the script, and you guys had such a good vibe, part of which I'm sure transferred from the film to the TV show. But yeah, it was a masterpiece of a show, and I think a lot of people felt that way, and a lot of people miss it.
We had a ball with that one, man. I wish we could have done 10 seasons, but also it was a weird ass show.
Well, let's get to the like origin of it all, man. Anybody who knows you, follows you, knows you represent the Bay. Are you born and bred?
Born and bred, Bay Area, East Bay, Berkeley, California, Oakland, California.
It's so funny because I grew up getting the East Bay catalog, in Jersey. Like I was like, oh, let me look at these sneakers, and let me get a jersey or a mitt, and then I was like, oh shit, this is a real place. But how did that inform your voice being from the Bay?
Oh man, the thing about the East Bay is that there is such a wide array of talent. Like everyone's so good at what they do, and everyone does 5 things. Is that one, like the bar for talent is really high. Like you're really good at playing piano, like you're destined for Juilliard. It's kind of like but can you also XYZ? Can you also because there's just so much untapped talent. It is like this private ecosystem there. And so there isn't this funnel to Hollywood or funnel to New York or funnel to Chicago. And yet it is this massive metropolitan area. And so we know who the talented cats are. There's just not a lot of people don't kind of get out of it.
Interesting.
So I felt from a very young age, like, well, if I'm going to do this, I got to do this and I got to do this and I got to be good at this. And so same time I started writing, I'm picking up a camera. I'm learning, early versions of Adobe Premiere. I know Digital Performer that led into Pro Tools, that led into Logic.
Right.
And
Yeah, because I see in your credits I got here. I mean, I see actor, assistant director, editor, sound editor. Like that's the hustler's creative
That's it,
journey.
man. I was trying to be technically proficient in every way that I could because I knew I could get money that way. Because I know there was a demand for editors. Like people could go shoot their video, but nobody could cut. And they didn't know how to do effects. They didn't know how to color grade. They didn't know how to do Foley. I didn't even know the word Foley, but I knew how to do it because I was using Pro Tools. And it was a lot of, learn along the way. But I kind of had this like in front of the camera career that I was building as a poet and as a playwright. And I was just trying to perform the things that I wrote, which led into acting, which led into writing longer scripts and all that, and music. And then the other side, I think probably because of music, I had to learn the technical skill of recording. And if you've used Pro Tools and you've used Premiere, they're the same program.
Right.
That you have a timeline, you have an emotional arc, you're cutting a 3 to 5 minute thing. And so there were all these transferable skills. And so I think ultimately, man, I just got in on it at the right time. Like technology was becoming available on Macs. Community colleges were offering free classes because nobody was signing up for them because nobody knew.
Now, what year are we talking about now? If you don't mind,
2000, 2001, 2002. Okay. These programs are starting to come out.
Yeah.
I'm getting some support from my folks. I'm also doing some less than reputable things to get some money at that point. I've flunked out of high school at this point. So like these technical skills are like really valuable for me in a way that my friends who are still like juniors and seniors in high school, I'm trying to get bread now.
Right.
I'm out. And so, cutting people's music videos and cutting promo videos for nonprofits. Craigslist is starting to pop off. Yeah. I'm looking for gigs. I have $300 for someone to cut together or make my flyer for my event.
Right. You like jackpot.
I'm like, that's 300. That's 200. That's 500, trying to just cut, flip, turn stuff around, anticipate clients' needs, all that shit while I'm also trying to like perform and do rap shows and do, whatever. And these always felt like two completely different people until we made a movie.
That's amazing, man. So so going back to the beginning of this conversation, like there's all these different, artisan talents that you have, right? But like, was the rapping, poetry, was that the driver at that time? Or was it something else?
Yeah, YouTube was popping off. So I was doing poetry in the like the Brave New Voices scene, which is like the big youth poetry scene, which is like there's fans, there's fanaticism in that. And then YouTube pops off and there's not really people putting poetry on YouTube yet. Now it's all over Instagram and all over social media.
Right.
But nobody had really done that yet. So me and maybe like 3 other people nationally were the first people to do that. So we got all these, what are not big numbers now, but 500,000 views, 750,000 views, like big.
That's
in
great.
The early days of YouTube, it was nuts.
Yeah.
And then I went on Def Poetry as an 18-year-old with Russell Simmons' company on HBO. And suddenly the combination of like being social media savvy, YouTube savvy, and being on HBO meant that I could tour, I could gig. So I'm gigging for I'm making, $1,500, $2,000 of each show.
Now, when you say meant that, was that your kind of acumen saying, it looks like there might be a market here. I should travel, or like, was there like a manager getting involved, or how did that come to be?
So it was like, there was definitely just a catalyst of like, I know if I can get numbers and eyes on what I'm doing, I'll have more opportunity. Right. I just think I understood that courting the right kind of attention was going to be valuable as an artist. Right.
Right.
And this is still the time of like, hip hop music is mostly happening on like early blogs and magazines still. And YouTube was like, the DSLR cameras hadn't popped off yet. So like low grade music videos weren't a thing yet.
Yeah.
So YouTube was great for like reposting stuff kind of only, So I knew it was valuable. Did Def Poetry. And then what was happening from there was there were these talent agents that would hit you up who would try to like wrangle up as many of the more popular people from that show, which like, thank God one of my poems popped off and probably from YouTube became one of the popular ones on that show.
Right.
We would do these NACA conferences, which are college booking conferences. And you go and you get up on stage and the little clock starts going and you got 3 minutes to show what you could do on a college campus if they booked you. And you do that. And then all the colleges get together and they go, all right, well, we'll split the cost and he'll come to these 5 schools.
Wow.
And then down south, these 3 schools will get him. And then suddenly I'm out on the road sometimes alone. Sometimes like I toured with Javier Colon for a while, who eventually won The Voice. But like this is back when he was just singing on campuses. And like we did like 5 or 6, tour dates together, and other people from Def Poetry. And sometimes you're on the road with rappers and musicians. Like I went to Alaska and I opened for Dougie Fresh and Cool Herc and Slick Rick like twice. Like that was weird.
That's amazing, man.
But these are like, they're just, I opened for Lauryn Hill. I opened for Talib and Most, like you just get these crazy gigs in that world, and none of it was planned. But I was just chasing, like, I need to get on stage. I need to be seen. I need to be around the greats. I need to get better. And really what I was trying to figure out how to do is I'm doing these little 2-3 minute poems, but I'm getting these half-hour, 40-minute slots. And I can either run a bunch of poems, or I can start building like a show. And I slowly started crafting like, all right, what would I do if I was up there for an hour? What would I do up there? Some of it's comedy, some of it's poetry, some of it's like telling a little story and then going to the next thing.
Wow. Man, that's dope. So by
that's
virtue
how scripts
of
happen. That's how we got into long form. It's the same way with stand-up comics. I'd bump into the stand-ups on the road because they'd be booked the next day. And I'm watching them start working out there. Okay, you're working on your material. You're doing your 20 minutes, but you're trying to get to your half hour. You know? So it was a very similar, in terms of being on stage, it was a very similar grind.
So at what point, like what was the first kind of scripted thing that you did?
Man, I did this play. Me and David did a play with this other writer, Chinaka Hodge, who is one of the main writers on this that Ironheart show that's coming out next year. And a buddy of mine, Nico Carey, wrote this play about if the Bay Area had a 40-day drought. And it was kind of about like a sudden loss of resources and how the city, and ultimately about how the country would handle it. And it was called The One Drop Rule. Obviously it was about like how Black people are going to get treated versus how white people are going to get treated back home. And we did that in New Orleans under this cat Mark Mamusi Joseph's direction. And writing that, I had played with long form before, but this was the first time we wrote like a straight play that had verse in it.
Yeah.
And we did it for 3 weeks in New Orleans. And at the last minute, Nico Carey dropped out. And so we had to replace him. And we replaced him with a young 17-year-old, 18-year-old Benjamin Earl Turner, who eventually was on Blindspotting. He's a kid at this point. He's like a poet kid.
Yeah.
And he comes out to New Orleans with us for a few weeks and does this play. And me and David just fell in love with him. We were like, this kid's a genius, man. But that was our first attempt at it was also the first time me and David had done like scenes together.
Right. Now, how did the two of you guys meet?
We met in high school. I mean, he's older than me. He was a senior when I was a freshman. So, for folks who remember high school, like that's not a thing.
Right.
And I was more like a rapper, poet kid running around with all my goony ass friends. And Diggs was like a track and field guy and a theater guy. But he got into poetry, right, sort of towards the end. And so we bumped into each other at the poetry slams and stuff.
Right.
And I knew him. And then he went off to college, became like a rapper and it's like savant in every conceivable way. And I opened a recording studio in North Oakland while he was gone. And so when he came back, a buddy of mine's older brother was like, hey, have you heard David's mixtape, which was called Metaphor Play? And and they brought it over and I was like, I mean, he's barred up, let's see what he does. And he came through and like, I say this every time somebody asks, but like, I truly don't remember not being best friends since then. It was just like, he came over, we kicked it. He stayed there till 7 a.m. We made like 5 songs that night. And it was just like, this is my guy.
Right.
That's
it sounds like that.
We do everything.
It sounds like that Bay thing you talked about. You probably saw it in each other really quick. Did you have visions of expanding beyond the Bay, like fairly quickly? Dreams?
I don't know about visions. I don't know if we saw it possible. Certainly not in film or like theater. The biggest vision we had was like E40 was here and he was respected. Him and Too Short were respected all over the world, but they lived in the Bay or in Atlanta. And they were still fringe in hip hop. Like Too Short was getting big features and stuff, but like he still didn't feel the way Wayne or Jay-Z felt,
Right.
And not any fault of his own. I just don't think he was getting treated that way. And E40 was so regionally specific that I think even for people who respected him, he was fringe. And so he was making his money and the wines were coming out and the tequilas, but it was insular. It was still very Bay Area. And then in the acting world, like we knew Tom Hanks was from the Bay, but we didn't ever see him. You know, it wasn't like people were coming back and doing community work. It's just like that pipeline just wasn't there. People escaped the Bay to do that. And that was kind of our only measurement. And so I think we dreamed of it, but we hadn't seen anyone do it. And so it all felt like new terrain, which is why there was no roadmap. It was just like, let's try everything. Let's do fucking everything. Because we don't know, we can't even figure out quite how to get on the radio. That didn't happen until like 7 years later. You know, it just, it's a beautiful place, but it's a very hard place to exist as an artist when there's not a roadmap, which is of course like what we're trying to change for the Bay now, right?
What do you think is behind
Hold
that?
up, man. I get to fire it back. Hold up, man, because I don't know shit about Jersey.
I mean, yeah.
Can you get out of Jersey? Like, do you just pop out the womb and you're like, I'm Pete Chatmon, like I'm gonna direct the fuck out of things? Like, what is that?
I mean, much like, it's funny, man. Like in my high school, right? I grew up in South Orange and Maplewood, New Jersey. I grew up in South Orange, but we shared the high school with Maplewood. And so like you had these two communities that were kind of like this, like, you know, when our middle school played their middle school, it was fights, you know, and basketball and everything. And then ninth grade, now y'all are fucking teammates. You know what I mean? So it was always a little weird kind of maturation period to everybody get on the same page. But at that public high school, man, 2 years, so we had a film program, which was a film camera, a Super 8 camera.
Remember
we had the exactly. We had the local public access station operated out of the school, so we had that equipment there. And then we had a photography program, which was like a couple cameras and like development fluid, right? And in the TV program 2 years ahead of me was Zach Braff, and Lauryn Hill was his year.
Oh shit! Okay.
So like, I mean, and Matthew and Elizabeth Shue went to this high school, and Kinsey, who did the Kinsey report in the 20s or 30s or whatever the hell that was. So it was like there was access, and like, so everybody like, I watched the rise of the Fugees and Lauryn, and I was there when she was singing at our assemblies, and it was like, oh, she ain't in school because she's on As the World Turns, and she's doing Sister Act 2, you know, like, and it was like, wow, look at this shit. But then,
so there
like,
was a roadmap. There was a like, yo, people pop off out of here.
I guess so. I get, but everybody was still like reachable. I mean, like you would see Redman driving around. You know what I mean? Like the R&B cat Joe. You know, like I ended up doing a video for him in 2008, but I knew him because I'd see him by the high school. You know what I mean? So like,
Joe, what you doing by the high school?
And I was like, let me phrase this. You know, but yeah, man. So there was like, there wasn't like a kind of a point by point roadmap, but there was definitely like,
but it's
there's proximity.
Yeah, like I think that was the difference for us, is like you would see Too Short at Guitar Center for sure. You know, you're gonna see E40, but they're not Mark Hamill. You know, like Mark Hamill's from the East Bay. This is Luke Skywalker. You know, he's not also around. The only version of that you had really was that somewhere over the other bridge, George Lucas was there. You know, Lucasfilm was there. And that was the like, oh man, like somewhere over there is Darth Vader's like helmet is like in the mountains. But that might as well have been LA for most people until I fucking got a job there when I was 18.
And what was that?
Months. I worked at Skywalker Ranch because my homegirl Maven's dad was the head of like wiring engineering for the ranch. And they were like this hardcore Irish family that lived in South Berkeley. And I just remember being at her house one day, and her dad was like cool with me sometimes, but he was a little standoffish. And I think I just begged his ass. I just begged him. I was like, please, I'll do anything to get in that building. He was like, well, I need a wire technician because Clint Eastwood wants to turn one of our theaters into a soundstage for some movie he was doing. And I was like, I'll do that. I don't even know what a wire technician is. And what it is you sit in the basement and you tear the ends off wires and you change them to whatever cable they need. And you run that bitch through the whole building. And, but got to be around Randy Tom and all these amazing sound engineers. And you know, lunchtime is still everyone's in the little restaurant.
Right.
And you see it. You're like, no, like they were doing Pirates of the Caribbean in one of the other theaters. I was like, this shit is real. Those guys live in the Bay right here, and they're working on the biggest movie of next year. Like, this is achievable.
Right. I feel like the theme, it's funny, like, you know, every season there kind of seems to be a revelation of a theme.
Yeah.
And it's feeling like hunger. You know what I mean? Like hunger is nothing new on the docket, but like I love hearing how hungry people are, and like, you know, you go where the food takes you. You know what I'm saying? And like, and whatever's gonna get you closer to the dream.
Was it a straight line for you? Not at all.
Not
I'm
at
talking
all.
about even just to fit, like even just because, like, I feel like you are widely known as a director, right? Like I think that is obviously like the hat people think, literally the hat that people mostly think.
Right.
You know, they're like, P. Chatmon with the hat, director. That's a director hat. You know,
Right.
Is that? Do you identify yourself in a far more complicated way than that?
Well, I'm gonna tell you this. I may have shared this, but I rapping was my first.
Yeah, I did. I did know this. Now that you say it, I did know this shit.
Yeah. So like that was my shit, and like I was like,
how many rappers turned directors do you think there are?
Oh man, I mean, there's probably a lot, and sometimes I laugh, like I fuck around and put a little EP out, and people be like, oh shit,
see this mic?
You know what I mean? It's like when people see Mos Def act, it's like, you're actually seeing the first thing second.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and so like, I feel like, yeah, man, like that was my thing. I loved music. But I did have a point in the road where I was like, I feel like, this is my opinion, but I was like, I feel like music kind of like hits a memorable moment and kind of connects to an emotion, but super hoity-toity, you know, idea. But it's like, but like films can change people's minds. There aren't many songs that have changed my mind. They've made me feel something that I've already felt, with the exception of maybe like a change is gonna come, or the Bob Dylan song, Blowing in the Wind. You know, like there aren't a lot of mind-changing songs, because that's not what you're really fucking there for with music.
They're also just so, I've thought about this so much, man, because I'm sure you went through this too, but like, man, the people in my life that just chanted at me, pick a lane, which was just a nightmare for me, because I was like, I don't think you're right. I don't think I have to do that. But I know the road's going to be harder because I won't just do that.
Right.
But music serves just such a different function for me than long form storytelling. Storytelling also is like, it's so collaborative. There's so many other people involved. We're building a big ship. We're trying to take people through a range of emotions, right? This like, what do you call it? Like, you know, this, when you get into the mix, you're like, we're going to work with 40 songs. We're going to compose. We got to do all the shit. We're back to music at the end again. Anyway, it's sort of full circle.
I'm highly jealous of music though, because you and I could have made a song already right now.
Yes.
You know
what
I mean?
Thing is like an hour in the studio and we've created and like fit. It just got to go to mixing and mastering, which ain't even our problem.
Yeah.
But that's why I still make so much music and still put out music. And what's funny is that like by my younger standards, I probably have more listens on songs I put out in the last few years than I did back then. But back then I was like, I'm a rapper, singer, a producer, and that's my whole identity. And that's what people know. And now it's like the third or fourth thing that people find out about. And yet, like, data wise, the newer shit is more popping. It's just not, people don't look at me and go like, oh yes, like the moody musician. Like that branding has to sort of leave for you to be a functioning member of an industry that like needs not some cool mysterious kid, but in fact needs a grown-up, because you're being put in charge of a multi-million-dollar machine. You know, like I can't be so you see a few people do it, you know, but like I think people sometimes think like Donald Glover is acting the way Childish Gambino acts in meetings. So I'm like, that man is a businessman in those meetings. Like Curtis Jackson and 50 Cent are different motherfuckers.
Right.
And they get the privilege of those two identities because to a certain degree, like their music popped off a little bit first, or like their mystique of that sort of popped off a little bit first. Whereas for me, like, you know, there was a lot of smaller, now it feels smaller considering sort of what has happened now, but like at the time it was big enough for me. But then the movie happened and the entire way in which the world received and related to me changed. Like over the course of 1 year, it was like, now people know you as a screenwriter and an actor, and your music and poetry shit is to the fucking birds. Like that shit is nobody. Yeah, exactly. Nobody knows that you anymore. And that's what happens when you get your first like bigger credit, is it defines you until you do that again, which is a weird identity crisis that I don't know.
Will say from the outside looking in, and not that you need my rose colored glasses, but like,
please give it to me.
at least it wasn't in something that you didn't have your heart in. Because I feel like, you know, I have a feature. So, cause I've done 2 features, but they were without the industry. So it's like, to the people in the industry, it's kind of like, oh, you do features. And I'm like,
yeah, like they didn't, like, Sundance didn't force them to watch it.
right. So now, like, you know, I can share it, and I'm sure I will have by the time this runs, but like, I have one that I've co-written and Spike Lee's come on to EP it. And, you know, it's just interesting. But en route to that, from 2008, when I did the last feature, to now, where we're like pushing it along, like I got a lot of features and I was like, that ain't it. Because if that thing pops and blows and that becomes what people think I think about, you know what I mean? Like I don't know if that's a gift or a curse. And so like you're popping off with Blindspotting is like, well, there were these 4 or 5 things that I was really, you know, putting my heart into, and it just happened in a different order, but I put my heart into all those things.
Yeah, that's a really good, my friend, this poet, Sarah Kay, said this to me once. I've been pressuring her to write a movie. She has a great idea. Sarah, if you're seeing this, do it. She said to me once when I was trying to figure out what movie to push her into writing, she was like, you're operating from a different place. You already made your movie. And I was like, what do you mean? She was like, that is your soul movie. You can make a bunch of other movies and share other pieces of your soul, but like you already made the movie that you wanted to make, whether everyone said it or not. And that, I think, has been the great blessing of the last few years, is that, you know, we wrote that movie almost 20 years ago now, the first time. And all we wanted to do was me and David use our buddy dynamic to say something about the times that we grew up in, and to not have to wait until like the end of your career to do that. Some directors we know, like 40s, 50s, 60s, maybe you get your first shot at making a thing that's your whole ass self.
Right.
And so it's going to be weird because I don't know what, you know, obviously I want to direct, you know, my next feature and want to do my next show and all that. But I have that same thought all the time of like, well, now you've done the thing. You've told everyone who you are. Now you really can't do no stepping stone ass project, because they'll know it's a betrayal. It's not a private betrayal. It will be a public betrayal. You're a part of some bullshit now. And some cookie cutter shit. And you started here, and people are going to go like, but you were this indie guy who was like all about his home turf and talking about race politics. And now you're in some like goofy shit that's kind of problematic. Like, you know,
well, I'll offer, you know, I'm always the devil's advocate.
Come on.
And sometimes I be believing what I'm advocating for, but like, I think about what Jamie Foxx did after getting the Oscar, and he said, you know what, man, fuck that. Like, I'm not gonna try and change my sensibilities. And I know that's not what we're talking about right here, but
I remember that.
But like, I'm not going to change my sensibilities, or I'm not going to like, you know, stay away from things because they don't match the sheen I should have on my resume because of this one thing that was decided upon by people who aren't me.
Yeah.
And there's, you know, something perhaps to that. And for me, like one of my favorite directors is Soderbergh. And like, I just love how like, yeah, here's Ocean's 12. And then the next thing you're like, yeah, I got a new iPhone.
I got this. I'm going to shoot it all on there.
Yeah, I'm going to shoot it all on there, and I'm going to
but
edit it and shoot it. And like,
how amazing that he knows himself that well. It's like when I watch certain directors talk and I'm like, this motherfucker is so like obnoxiously on their own hype that like, and not even in a bad way, in a way that's like, damn, they can't even escape who they are.
right.
And I deeply admire that. And I think sometimes when I feel myself, either getting presented with too many options or not enough options in both versions, you got to come and ask yourself like, well, one, there's that question of like, if money wasn't an option, what would you do? And then two, like, if this was the last shit you ever got to do, is this your curtain call joint? Like, is this your, because you never know.
You never
And
know.
I don't know about you, but like I've had a few homies pass away in the last few years who were artists who died stupid ways. And I remember one of my boys I grew up with, I know since preschool, man, he died during the pandemic from a health thing that like, we couldn't even believe it was true, man. Amazing producer. We made music together for years. He was there the day that David came over the first time. And I got the call that he passed, man. And I wrote on my whiteboard, like, you might die tomorrow. Make the thing. Do the thing. And it changed everything for me. It made it so much easier to have a project come by and just be like, yes, that could bread me out and set me up for life. And I started to have this nightmare of actually being financially successful and hating my career. I was like, I think that might be worse, to be like standing in a big ass house, like, man, I did it. And then you're just like, but I made
crickets. Ain't nobody
and
in there with
just kind of like, but like you were tight and interesting and you were saying something and now you're kind of a goof, and it terrifies me.
It's a problem I've yet to be forced with, because no one's been knocking down my door with that much money. But
hey, same here, man. But like, when I went and did Loki on Marvel as an actor, like I didn't think I was going to become hella famous, and like I kind of didn't. Like it was kind of like, was happy with what I got paid and loved the exposure, but it didn't like launch my career. But I had to think about if it did. I was like, what if this is it? Like, this is a big show. Like, it's not gonna happen for sure. Like, you have to contend with that. And are you okay with that being the loudest thing about you? Is this wig?
Hilarious. I like to think, though, my final rambling on that is that, like, I feel like I would hope that I would be who I think I am. And if I'd made a decision like that, like, let's say I did the George Clooney Batman thing, right? And I know I'm doing it to set myself up, then it's like, okay, y'all gonna get this live TV event. Good night and good luck. Y'all about to get, you know what I mean? Like, you're about to get, like, I'm about to do Three Kings, homie. You know what I mean? I'm about to do, and I feel like, I don't know, it's always been so.
As long as you have that plan.
As long as you have that plan, right? If you can hold your fort.
Saying, Pete, you're a planner. You got the iPad on the thing. You're thinking ahead. Not everyone is. Like I am a planner in the sense that I love seeing through the thinning fog of an idea and a future, and I will get us there.
Yeah.
But I am not a meticulous planner, and so for me, the career trajectory is always like, it's always way more of a gut check than a strategy check. And the moments that I have a strategy, I'm proud that I've picked up these things from people that I've watched and gone, okay, to your point, like, I'm going to do this. That's not great, but I've got Three Kings in the bag. And I'm ready to go.
Right.
In those moments, I'm proud of myself, but I can't help but worry, because this industry is so fickle and moves on from people so fast, and will just decide they don't like somebody 2 weeks after they love them. And I'm like, I don't trust the winds of these fickle people. You know what somebody said to me the other day? I'm gonna show this on this podcast, but I'm not gonna take credit for it. I'm gonna make sure I credit the person who said it, because it was amazing. Is this writer I'm working with, this cat Michael Aguilar, amazing producer. Michael Aguilar has done a bunch of stuff that he's taking credit for and a bunch of stuff that he's not taking credit for. And we're talking about, we're like, you know, getting ready to take a thing out. And he was working on something that he was kind of annoyed by. And he said, you know what I can't stand about some of these producers at these studios is they're all leaving the studios to come be in our world. And like, they want to be independent producers like us. Right. And I just want to yell at them, you know, you guys are indoor cats. We are outdoor cats.
Right.
You don't know how to hunt for your food. You don't know how to, you know, and sometimes I feel like so much of my career.
But we still got claws.
But we still got claws. We ain't been declawed, defanged. We know how to fight predator animals. And you know, my whole career has been an outdoor cat, but it's at the mercy of these indoor cats. And I'm always worried that I'm like, I know how to navigate everyone out here. I know the independent hustle really well. I know how to get mine. But now I'm a part of the machination of like the indoor cat machine. And I don't know them. I don't know how you end up in that job. I don't know, you know, why. Do you love art? Do you love movies in the same way? And so I get nervous when I'm trying to like plan 4 moves ahead, because I'm like, these people are operating purely out of fear and like streaming numbers. And I'm like, you're unreliable as fuck. And so how do I plan into something? So I don't know. I'm curious how you navigate your plans, knowing that the industry is so unpredictable.
I mean, you know, it's funny, man. Like, I feel like if you move by your heart, you know, obviously, like, there's some things that are just going to be before their time. Sure. You might muscle that shit to the finish line and find crickets await you, you know, because of the timing. And then there are things like, you know, in this feature that we're working on, like, I mean, just today, the Fresh Air did a podcast on, and I'm not going to be specific about it, you know, but they did a podcast specifically about the historical event that this heist film is anchored by.
Amazing.
And I was like, oh, let's send that over to the people who are looking at it right now so they can like understand like
how relevant it is.
Relevant it is. You know what I mean? Like, and I think sometimes like the shit just catches up to you, but it just becomes about how much can you keep doing while you wait for, I'm not going to be diplomatic, like while you wait for people to catch up to your dopeness. You know what I mean? Because sometimes, like, you know, what we do is it's not 20 points and 10 rebounds a game. It's subjective, you know, and you could be the illest fucking baller, and they're just like, we don't like how he shoots.
But this is, there's wisdom in that, right? Like, it took me a long time to realize that sometimes the hype I'm on, people are going to hate on. And then years later, but then it kept happening. I would be into something and everyone would be like, nah, I don't do that, dog. And then 3 years later, it's the epicenter of the art form. Yeah. And then, you know, but nobody wants you to pull the receipts then. So you don't. You're like, all right, so I guess all y'all love this artist now, huh? Even though I was doing it. Okay. And same thing, I was like, these kind of movies are gonna come back. We should work on that. Nah, no one's gonna like that idea. Another show a year later comes out, same fucking premise, and you're like, look, it's on Apple.
I feel like, I mean, I made my feature in 2005, and I was like 2.5 to 3 years before that mumblecore thing started becoming a thing. So like, I have this film that like a lot of people still come up to me and our star Dorian Missick and Zoe Saldana and be like, yo, we love that film. But like at the moment in time where we white knuckled $520,000 together to make it, it was like a tree that fell in the woods, you know. And you just have to like keep fucking going.
Oh, it's so painful when you realize that so much of the job is about getting the world ready for what you're about to do, and you realize that that's part of it. Is like, I can't just make the thing and push it out into the water and think that people are going to be like, oh, we get it. Like you got to prep. And that's where these marketing budgets come in, is like, it's not just, put up the billboard or put out the teaser or whatever. It's like, we have to condition people. This is a really good idea, but we got to tell them how to watch it. And that was a big part of with Blindspotting when we put it out, because I think what I wish, you know, obviously I didn't know then what I know now, but I wish they had marketed the movie as a comedy and then it delivered separately instead of a drama that happened to be funny. And I think we would have the surprise would have been that it was deeper than it presented itself. And that's a road that's easier for people to get on. But there's a harder barrier for entry for dramas. And I didn't know that. I wasn't in the business. I didn't know it was going to be a thing. I only see the successful ones. I'd never seen how many get forgotten. And then you go to Sundance and you go the year after and you're like, damn, so many movies that are good just fucking die. It's heartbreaking, man. It's also, I'm sure it's been this way for you too, but like, I know I feel this way. I felt this way in music. Now I really feel this way in film and television. And I think it's the mark of somebody who really knows what they're doing. And I'm sure I got this from people who are further along, is like, I don't trust the hype at all, man. If I see something and it's dope filmmaking, I'll reach out to that person, because the hype machine is going to do what it does. But good filmmaking, good storytelling, it may be dead on the fucking floor after the festival. And it's like, I don't care. You're dope. That is dope. And to have independent taste in a hype machine of an industry is like so sacred to me. It's like, I don't care who says that's not tight. That shit was amazing. Or I don't care who says that's amazing. That is pure trash.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I mean, you got to have your own North Star. And that's the thing about, writing, directing, acting. It's like and this is another theme that's been coming up in interviews this season, a discussion about like taste and how important it is to have taste, and how you are in a sprint to have your abilities catch up to your taste. You know what I mean?
That's the whole game, right?
and that's like, and it's a fucking hard race to win. But then when you you're like operating on all cylinders, like even like that scene we were talking about from the episode I was honored to direct of Blindspotting. Like when I like thought about that sequence with the music and the rails, like, this is dope. Like I knew it, you know what I mean? Like I just, because it was
and you have the skill set to do it.
Everything happening at one time.
Well, this is what was so great about shortening that season. And as much as I think I, probably could have gotten away with directing earlier, like there was a lot of benefits to being at the end. And the main one being that like trimming that gap was everything. Like, I knew what the show looked like in my head. I'd spent more time with those scripts than anybody. I knew what the budget was. I knew what we could achieve. I could see it clearly. But when you watch something in your head, you're watching the cliff notes. You're watching your favorite shots. But you're not thinking about how you're getting between those shots, and you're not thinking about how to keep the audience engaged in between those moments, and how are you going to take us up the stairs, and what, and all these things add up to something. And what becomes really exciting when you're watching directors who know what they're doing and are specifically have tasked with interpreting a script that has not already fatigued them for months, is I'm watching directors work off my material with fresh eyes. And you're watching them find stuff that you're too tired to find. It's just, I'm like, I see the 30 drafts. I don't see just the scene as it is. So you would do stuff, and other directors would come on and do stuff, and I'd be like, wow, I would not have taken that time on this. Like I would have made this moment precious, but I wouldn't have thought to give this kind of a camera move or this kind of an isolated moment its breath of fresh air. And while I can, like, if I was a bad showrunner, I think I'd just write that off and be like, well, everyone's got their style. It's like, no. When you're in the edit though, and your episode needs this breath, and you go, is there a close-up of Ben looking unsure? And there's 7 of them. Because Pete fucking Chatmon knew that shit was important. Like, these are the moments I wish directors could see, both good and bad, is being in the edit and seeing where they are saving the fucking day. And they did an amazing job. And I also wish some directors who are in like their first couple episodes could come into our edit and I could go, do you see how you fucked us a little bit right here? I'm not saying I'm mad. I'm just saying, do you see how you fucked us by not doing the shot that I told you to get? I'm just saying, don't do that to the next.
It's such a journey though, man, because like, about 2 episodes ago, I got into a little thing with the DP, because now, like, you guys were open to like those 2 things that we just talked about from the episode, And I will always be cognizant of where I am before I even pitch something like that.
Yeah.
Or because I know like some shows be like, go put that shit on a tripod, dog. You know what I mean? Like, so I kind of know that, but like now, and so now like I watch every episode of every show. I really try and find that I'm in the DNA. And I also look at the scene where I'm thinking about some new visual language. And I usually try and make sure it is unique to the episode. So
Yeah.
I'm not changing something that has a kind of long-standing visual language.
Yeah.
And
The sandbox, baby.
and 2 episodes ago, I was like, you know what? Never again will I leave a scene without getting everything that I think I need and or want. You know what I mean? Because on this one show, I did it in one scene out of 42. I did it in one scene out of 42, and I was like, I should have fucking got those 2
It
shots.
hurts your fucking
You,
spirit.
you know
It's
what I
a
mean? And like,
betrayal. It's a betrayal. You know, like all of your filmmaking experience is going, it's better this way.
yeah,
And the DP or somebody who's like tired, who's on
right,
episode whatever, is
right,
like, can I just get home? You're
right,
adding shit. And you have to look past that and go, I understand you're tired. I understand you've been staring at these actors for
right,
months and months and months, and that you don't think this moves the needle.
right.
But I think this is where directors and showrunners really line up, is you are my respite from fatigue. Like I am tired and I am running a race that like I can't win. I can only just fail well. and
Right, right,
and then recover from in post. But the best directors come in and they kind of go like, if they're great, which you are, if they're great, they take it from you and go, I got it. Pick this up in 2 weeks, but I got it. You know,
mm-hmm.
and it's the best feeling in the world. Your episode was the first time I left set. I remember that. I remember that. And that's no knock to anybody who came before. It was just the first time I was like, I don't really need to be here. And I love it because I'm on other
Right.
shows now as an actor and the writers are gone all the time. And I was like, that's the way to be. I'm like, I should be up in my office. Like
Right.
they got that. That's the director. Let them handle it. I'll look at the dailies at the end of the day and make adjustments, but we're not making big swings, you know?
Right. Right.
The beauty
Right.
when you can hand your set over to somebody who understands what the responsibility means is like, man, you get in your chair somewhere and you're just like, thank God. Thank God.
And that's and ideally it's everybody doing that. Like, you know,
Yeah.
it's you know, again, like it's so weird when doing a podcast because sometimes I'm like, for this person who listens to every episode, they'll be like, motherfucker, you told that story last episode.
Yeah,
But
sure,
like,
sure.
but like I told this story in a recent episode where I was like, you know, sometimes even I get so I might just fall into like minimizing the scene, right?
Sure.
Like, oh, it's 2/8 of a page. This character's doing XYZ. Clearly, you know,
This is
pick
a
up the
moment to
box.
catch up. Let's catch up.
Move over here. And then, like, sometimes an actor will be like, well, hold on. I was thinking, and then you're like, oh, word. Yes.
And also
All of that.
you don't know what it means to the longer story sometimes. I'll experience this as an actor on the other side. Like I know this little 2-line thing in the thing doesn't feel like it matters.
Right.
But I'm on this show for the whole season.
Right.
And if you don't make a meal out of this, no one ever is going to track the other stuff. And so those are the moments when a good director comes up and is like some version of just like, okay, so what do you think we need to get out of this scene of your character? And I've had one director do that when I was an actor where they were just like, you've got this interjection and I don't think it was an accident. Why do you think we need to do this interjection? And then I just get to tell them why I think it's worth covering.
Right.
In whatever way they take. And then they can put that in the bigger puzzle. But like, it just might be something that you really need. And you get into post and it's like, oh, well, now we're not even going to make that character important in the whole show because we didn't get that shot, you know? You can cover all the top 3 people on the call sheet, but like, we've all watched good TV. Like suddenly this cat over here is killing it. And that is absolutely some directors like that. They did that. They shot that actor with love and created a moment that didn't have to be there, but now the show is better because there's more good,
more moments, more truth, man. So good. I really, sometimes I just wish I had this podcast when I was coming up,
bro.
because
This, for real, this shit did
Right.
not exist. There were no podcasts. There was no way to like hear people talk about process. This would have changed my life.
would have saved me at least 4 months
Yes, easy.
in my 12 years.
Hi, I'm Maggie Kiley, Director of American Sports Story and the upcoming Grosse Pointe Garden Society, and you're watching Let's Shoot with Pete Chapman.
Transitions, A Director's Journey and Motivational Handbook is Pete Chapman's book from Michael Weezy Productions. The reviews are in. Greg Berlanti says, "There's a reason why everyone who works with Pete falls in love with his work. The lessons he imparts here are invaluable. Do yourself a favor and read it cover to cover." From Sarah Gamble, "Pete's sharing gold nuggets that will spare you a ton of wasted time and help you channel your drive, talent, and ambition in the most productive way." And from Jesse Williams, "This business has everything to do with preparation and expectations. Transitions grounds lessons in reality while empowering our artistry to run free. Not an easy balance to execute." Transitions, A Director's Journey and Motivational Handbook is available on Amazon and anywhere else you get your books. Don't forget about your mom and pop shops, people.
Let's Shoot with Pete Chapman is sponsored by the good folks at Scriptation. Scriptation is the Emmy Award-winning app for production that allows you to mark up scripts, transfer notes, generate breakdowns, and so much more. Personally, I use Scriptation daily on every production that I am involved with. While directing episode 106 of NCIS Origins, I took advantage of Scriptation's photo feature to organize my blocking for the episode's main set piece. We turned a restaurant with one entry point into a multi-level club with private rooms and back alleys, and sharing the photos in my script helped my department heads bring it to life. This is just one of the ways I use the incredible features inside of Scriptation. Go to scriptation.com/Pete to get an exclusive 20% off Scriptation's premium toolkit, Scriptation Industry Pro.
So coming out of Blindspotting, like, what have you, having directed multiple episodes, obviously written, EP showrun, still doing music, like, where are you headed next? Have you like recalibrated which hat you want to put the focus on? Like, what's your philosophy around the coming pursuits for yourself?
Yeah, music is just coming flying out. I'm trying to break this habit of sitting on music. So I have like 4 or 5 years of music that just needs to start going out for fun. So that's been great. I wrote this feature script last year that I've been attaching cast to that I want to be like my official like directorial debut in features. And I have like, I've got some of the principal cast attached, which is super exciting. And I got a rewrite that I owe everybody. But the goal is like, okay, let me get I want to officially wear the director hat in a place where there is like no confusion about who's making this thing. Right. And that's really exciting to me. I want to like step into that box, and my mother's like at my back being like, you need to be the writer director that you've been trying to be forever. Fucking go. So she's pushing the feature thing really, really hard. And I love that script and feel great about who we have attached. So there's that. And, trying to apply all the knowledge that we have of the business. Like the rewrite is about budget. I'm trying to hit a mark of where I could make the genre for the price with the cast, right? This is information I did not have 6-7 years ago of how to make a thing. And then the other job I love the most, man, is I love show running. I wasn't sure I did at the end of season 1. I was like, maybe I just needed to do it because I was the person to get it done.
Right.
And then once season 1 came out and it wasn't a failure, people loved the show. It was like the show was reviewed so well. When people were like, and I didn't agree with them when they said it was better than the movie, but when they were like, it's better than the movie, I was like, whatever, but thank you.
Right.
It's the movie is the movie, the show is the show. But going into season 2, now I had this experience and I was like, this job, I've seen the end of the season, the job of the end of the season, and I've gone all the way through it. I know how to conserve my energy. And what I really love, man, is I love getting people work. I love it. I love building a container that is artistically fun, that is a good time, that we think is achievable, putting together a team that can build a map to achieve it, and then employing like 300 motherfuckers for like months and months and months and months, paying people's rent and mortgages and kids and all that, you know, and doing it
It's
with
pretty dope.
art. It's amazing. And so a lot of my last 2 years have been setting things up at different studios, you know, whether it's getting paid to write the script and then seeing what they do with it or sticking around. And so I've got things I can't talk about that are all set up at different places. And the hope is that one of those goes. Obviously, we've been in like strike and cutbacks and things moving around for the last 2 years. So it's been a lot of limbo. But I've been fortunate to get a lot of writing work and development work and come in on other people's projects to consult and help get structure right and all that. And so while it's been, the acting side has been the loudest because those have been the things that have come out the most, the grind has been writing still 70%. And that's felt good because I feel like I've just been in the writing gym in a very practical way where it's not like really learning hour long. So we've been in half an hour, really learning hour long, working with networks that I deeply admire and understanding their notes process and where the execs have been good is the ones who really have a deep love for story and know how to steer a writer into their best selves. And the last 2 years have really been that. And so I don't know what the next thing is that's going to get actually greenlit and come out. And I'm sure whatever's closest this week won't be the closest next week because that's where we're at. But to our point about earlier about being like not betraying yourself in the work, there was a period there right after Blindspotting where I was just trying to fill the slate because I was like, I just need the next job and I want to be a non-writing EP on a bunch of stuff and I want to have a big slate and I want people to come to me with their projects. And then I just like slowed all that down and was like, you're copying people that you think are successful from the outside and you haven't asked yourself whether or not this is the bandwidth that you actually have. And then I started just looking at the few that I really had more than a couple of days worth of ideas on. I couldn't stop thinking about it and got obsessed about. And those are the ones luckily I'm on now. And the best relationships, honestly, like the people that I wanted to work with. I don't know about you, man, but I chase the same people over and over and over again. I'm like, yo, me and this person had an amazing dynamic. And I just came up in an environment where loyalty is everything. And so if somebody treated you well and lifted you up and you lifted them up and that went well, like that's a sacred relationship that you should pour into if you can, you know.
And at the end of the day too, right? Like, you know, I'd be doing, if I still worked at NYU in my staff jobs, submitting forms, I would still be on weekends for free, making some short film or
100%.
You know, making some super low budget indie, you know, on an iPhone.
I resist shooting every day, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
I resist just going outside and be like, I'm finna make something.
You know, so like that, so that's the vibe that like the work should have. And like, you know, it's funny, like I think of I was talking to my wife about this and I was just like, you know, just sometimes like personality things that you have on set. And I was like, you know, when I did my first feature, I had two crew members who were like kind of at odds, and it erupted on this one day, of course, when I had Bill Sadler doing his one day of work. And I'm like, this shit looks so amateur, you know? And I was like, you know, now I would literally I would get rid of both of them because I'd be like, I've spent way too much time for you two motherfuckers to fuck my. This is a thing that you set your alarm clock to for 28 days to show up and work. I've set my life to this shit for, you know, in that case, 5 years to get to this point where you could even be offered a job. So
and you'll be on to the next job, same as this one. And this will define me.
Right.
In this different.
We are in this different. You're not like us.
But the you know, you also have this responsibility to the rest of the crew. You know, they're fucking up their day, and it's a ripple effect, man. And you gotta you know, me and Diggs always say, like, you know, the ship's got to run on enthusiasm, man. It's got to.
Yeah.
The set's got to feel good. And we all have our moments that we fail a little bit at it, or we didn't eat breakfast that day, or whatever it is. And you're just like not the perfect version of yourself.
Yeah.
But if you can't get back to it with a stern reminder, loving but stern reminder, you got to go.
You
got to go. Because there's work in another industry, man. Too many people want to be here. Like, we can't.
Right.
You got to go home for the day at least. Rethink this. Fly in a temp.
Yeah. I got two final questions for you, and one is only come from this conversation, because I don't think I've spoken to someone with your biography. How has directing informed your writing?
Oh, yeah, man. Let's get into it. Because you're a writer too, right?
Yeah.
Like, you write.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. We're going to talk about this. So because I was on post-production first, right?
Right.
I realized later that post was having a huge impact on my writing, because I was just thinking about the cut.
Yeah.
And then I realized, once I directed the first episode, I realized how much you got to kind of come at it from both ends, right? You have to like write enough to play with in post, but not so much that when you're shooting, you're in a fucking dash,
right?
You know, because it's if you cannot. There's that. I'm sure you've seen this clip, man. It's Jonah Hill talking about working with Scorsese, and he's like botching a scene in Wolf of Wall Street. Not botching it, but he's like, you've seen this, right? And Scorsese tells him to sit down next to him for like 20 minutes and doesn't talk to him, just lets him mellow out. Right. I think about that all the time. I'm like, I got to have enough time to reset this whole cast if I need to, and not be behind. You know, if I throw off the vibe, or one of them throws off the vibe, I need enough buffer to fix a ship that's capsized. And so now when I'm writing, I came into this like playwright style. So I just want all this dialogue. I want everyone talking, and I think I'm Aaron Sorkin, and I'm just like, I'm so smart, and look how clever this ties into this, and this ties into, I think I'm so fucking smart. And then you watch your own show back the first time, and it's not the talkie that you love. It's these quiet moments that you built, and you're in the cut, and you're just cutting them dialogue moments out, and you're building these amazing, beautiful cinematic moments. And I just don't think I thought about the relationship between the DP and the script enough until I started directing, and I wasn't doing my work to translate these into cinematic moments instead of coverage of writing.
So what do you mean by that? Can you give me? I'm going to put you on the spot, but like, tell me, whether you make it up now or you can think of an example, like what the first version of like that 2/8 of a page looks like, and before you're kind of speaking to the cinematography of it, and then the version after.
So we'll take Earl's verse at the end of season 1, which was the finale that I directed, right? First of all, in the middle of that night, the last night we're shooting, there's a storm in Oakland that kills 3 hours, knocks over cameras, knocks over tents. So right away, I lose 3 hours of directing, which is nuts on my last location day. Now I remember Keith turned to me and he was like, "Now you're a director." Finish the episode. And we were shooting this shot where on paper it says there's a horn player on the corner. Benjamin is in the middle of the street smoking a cigarette. The horn stops and the verse starts. "This part of life is black and white." Da-da-da, ba-da-da, you know, and on paper there's no, I didn't write in the camera does this, or we create this moment. There's none of that. And in my head, it was like, we just pop on a bend and we start pushing back with him. And then I'm sitting with Taryn and she's like, "Well, we need to shoot, something that we can cut, like a wide that we can cut to if we get into trouble." I'm like, of course we need like our establishing, but like we're moving 150 feet on the street throughout this scene. Like, what wide is going to be usable for this?
Right.
And then we start talking about let's get on the crane since we've lost 3 hours, and let's do this master that starts high and he looks up and it drops down to him as he's going. And then it pushes in about 20 feet as far as we could get that crane. And that kind of a shot changes the scene. Like it is no longer the sum of the script. It is an emotional camera move that has made what he's saying infinitely more important. And yes, could I have shot it just like bam, 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 bam? You know, yeah, of course it would have been, and it would have been awesome. But he's rapping fast. The beat is aggressive, and the camera move is elegant and slow. And the relationship between these two things is the alchemy of that moment. And I just think that as a writer, I'm usually too tired to think about that chemistry between the art of cinematography and the vessel that is the script. And it wasn't really until that. It's not like I don't think of shots. I think of shots all day. But I think I thought in that moment that it was exciting enough, and that playing it straight was going to do it. And I never thought of cinematography necessarily as a strong counterweight to a moment, to give it a balance that like isn't something you can describe on paper. And so now I think I'm so hyper aware when I'm watching a show, when the cinematography is opposing the drama or the dialogue, and trying to figure out why they put it there and what it's doing to me as a viewer, and take that into my, what is it? Tarantino says, like, do your script work, not your writing work, but your director work. Now I think I'm so obsessed with that. I have to like let the script go, come back to it and go, okay, you did not write this. Let that go. Some other motherfucker wrote this and we're going to make fun of him. and now we're going to do the thing you'd do if you were just given this job. And then suddenly there's this new pathway of options that opens up to you, because you don't get to take credit for the writing anymore. What if you only get credit for this?
I always call that interrogate the script.
Oh, I love that.
Like that's like what I say to myself. Like I gotta interrogate this thing and make sure like your answers add up. Like if I got to go to trial on this, I feel confident in what I'm pulling from the script, because you're only gonna get interrogated by number one on the call sheet, the showrunner, like some executive who pops up in Video Village. Like you gotta put that swinging light bulb into action and look through that two-way mirror and go for it.
Well, this is that thing we were talking about earlier about like kind of doing a bunch of things, is like, that's great, but only if you're committed to trying to do them all the way together. Like I realized that when I asked to be a director on an episode, I'm asking for the same job that you had. And so if I want to, and yeah, I can cheat a little bit because I'm the showrunner and I can, I have crutches that I can lean on. But the exercise for me was, don't use those to try to catch up to the directors who just came in and did their shit. Be an organized enough person and take this seriously enough that like, if you were just judged on the merits of your direction, that you did not just a good enough job to like be in the arena, but like, I want, and this isn't coming anytime soon, but I want when somebody sees something that I directed at some point to go, aside from the writing, this man bodied the direction of this thing. And that in TV is so hard to achieve. Very few directors have done it. You've done it. There's not a huge list of people that like you Google who directed an episode and it's like, oh shit, but I remember people Googling that episode you did for us and being like, this director, we could, whether or not it's true, who knows if it's true or not, but they'll be like, we could feel that it was different this time. They'll say like, this episode felt different. And I think that's the mark of kind of being able to come in and go, I'm going to treat this like it's my baby for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Which is a crazy thing to do.
But it lives forever. You know what I mean? It lives forever. Like, those 3 weeks could be Paris, or it could be Patterson,
It could change your life, or it could just kind of
Right.
wash away, man. It could just be like, damn, and I didn't want anyone to watch the show and see how great of a job y'all all did, and then get to my episode and be like,
But that's the competition, man. That's like it's great I do the same thing on every show, quiet as it's kept. I literally am like, all right, how many other people are directing? Let me see the director list. Oh, they got that job. I didn't get. Okay.
yeah, who's
You
doing?
become Last Dance Michael Jordan, for no
Yeah,
reason, but like you got to have some battery pack,
yeah,
especially when you're wearing as many hats as you. So that's,
something.
I see guitars in the background. So look, I know you're not playing around.
I mean, I'm trying. That's an old mission that's going not so well. It's mostly there when the session guys come in, and I'm like, all right, so I played it like this, but that's
Right.
bad. Can you
Right.
pick this up? I want this sound. Can you do it better? Which, I'll be honest, same job as the showrunner. Like, hey, I've dreamed up all this stuff. Can you do it better than that? Can you?
Like some of the best representation of that, the deluxe edition of Off the Wall, Michael Jackson.
Oh,
Where have you heard this?
I've heard it.
It,
Yeah, I don't know what
it's
story you're about to tell. Is it
well,
souped up?
so the deluxe edition is basically, it has maybe not every song, but I'm gonna say every song, his demo versions of like
Oh,
beatboxing and
right.
like
Pre-Quincy.
no words. Yeah, pre-Quincy, like no words, but like scatting the like rhythms and melodies, and you're like, it was fire in Goobly-Yak.
Yeah.
Like, and then you got with Quincy, but you hear that and you see like how locked in he was, and
Yeah.
even if it wasn't the thing that he did best, he had something that could translate.
It's cooking. Like, something is cooking up here, and all the flavors are right. And it's just like, okay, I'm not the master chef of orchestration or whatever, but I know, to your point again about taste, like, I know what
Mm-hmm.
it's supposed to taste like at the end. It's got to be that. And then you get all these co-conspirators on, and you just pray
Yeah.
that you tell them the idea and you show them the script, and you go, I'm trying to get from here to this thinning fog of a thing over here, and it
Right.
sounds kind of like it sounds kind of like,
Yeah.
but that language you use on set sometimes, you're like, so I want to, like, and then then we're here,
and then boom,
and then boom, and then here, right, and then
right,
suddenly you're at the dance studio. You're trying to figure it out,
right,
but you're
right.
hoping the other person is like skilled in the same way, and you've all had to sort of like beatbox your way into the thing,
Right.
and you're like, are we on the same? All right, bet, go.
Right.
It's so exciting when the other side of it is like again, I remember when you're directing, I was up in my office doing some rewrite, and I had a monitor up there, and you were doing I think this was when the night car shot you were directing. It's her driving home before
Right.
she leaves the house. And I remember, like, it was being set up, and I was like, oh, this is, yeah, okay, the radio piece is gonna play, and we're gonna slowly dolly in on her or whatever. And it was getting set up, and I'd never seen a shot like that before. I know it's common, but I just never seen it. And finally, like, you got it where you wanted it, and there was just like, I think that for the first couple, there was like a little push, and there was a side angle, but it was mostly gonna be from the front. And it was that moment where I was like, damn, we talked about this. And here it is.
Yeah.
Like, that's my beatbox of this scene. This is it.
Right.
He's doing it. The lights are going. She's sad. The little lights here. The radio's going. She's mad at the radio. And it's just that great translation where you're like, damn, like, you Quincy that motherfucker. Great. Moving on.
Collaboration, man. Well, so wait, here's and you were the perfect person for this question. Again, as a man of many hats, I'm going to ask you one question, but it's multi-layered. If someone were to make a piece of, I hate the word, but content about your life,
sure,
what would it be? Like, it could be episodic, it could be a limited series, it could be a film, it could be a doc. Who plays you, and what genre, and who directs it?
Oh, man. Okay. We'll do today's answer.
Okay, yeah, it's like your top 5 dead or alive. It
Yeah,
changes.
yeah, it's impossible, right? But today, if we were gonna like go from here and go do it, I would do a TV show shot in the style of The Office. I would want to be Jim. I want to be able to look at the camera and be like, "Are y'all seeing this?" This is my post-election answer. So I want to be able to go.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm in here with the crazies. I want to be able to look at the camera. Who would play? Who would play me? I don't even think it necessarily would have to be anyone who looks like me. But you know who's a lot of fun right now is I would just like snatch Jake Gyllenhaal's funny ass. And I would like, he's like the right kind of like weird and serious and then can also do comedy stuff. And I feel like he's like down for whatever. So I feel like the show could be a lot of fun. So I'd snatch up Jake
You
Gyllenhaal.
say that and I can literally see that.
He's so interesting to me. Snatch Jake Gyllenhaal up. He would play me. And then it's who would direct it? Oh, man. Who would direct it? Like
And
any
you're free
director?
to direct. You're free to direct. Yeah, any director, you're free to direct it.
Man, no, I don't. If it's about me, I'm too biased. I wouldn't be able to pull it off. You know who would be fun? This is like the pilot. If it was the pilot, you know who I would do? I was just hanging out with that I think is really dope. Tasba Chavez, do you know her? No. She worked a ton on Res Dogs. That's like her and Sterling Harjo's baby. We tried to get her on Blindspotting, but she was working on that show too much and couldn't do it. But her and I just got to hang out a bunch in Albuquerque while I'm out shooting this other Netflix show. And I love the way she talks about television. Mm-hmm. And she just did one of those kind of like mockumentary shows like that and was explaining to me how it's done. And I would love to be like in Video Village with her directing, with Mr. Gyllenhaal playing me in a setting that's like, I don't know what the premise of the show is, man, but it's definitely me trying to navigate like multiple worlds where I don't quite fit into any of them. Right. And it's just about me kind of always being halfway in that world and halfway out. Cause that's how I feel about my life. I think that's the multi-hat thing, is also like you become a person who has siloed worlds. Like I have friend groups that are like vastly different. I'm a totally different motherfucker if I'm back home in the Bay versus who I am in a meeting down here versus who I am with my New York friends. Like it's just like you start compartmentalizing. And I think a show that was on my shoulder while I did that would be it'd get maybe a season, maybe 2.
It would be critically acclaimed, though,
and not particularly well watched.
Hey, that's a good place to be. That's just
What's
enough
your answer to this,
make
man?
the next.
Hold up, have you answered this?
I have answered it, and
all right, give me the quick one if it's been on another episode. Wait, no, what is it today? Just answer.
So it took a long time, and because I was grappling with the like, do they have to look like me thing? But I remember landing on Rami Malek for some reason.
I mean, he's
just
great.
That dude's great, and I think it would be some kind of dramedy. This is probably different from whatever I said back then.
Good, yeah, switch it up.
Dramedy, you know. I would challenge myself to find a narrative engine to make it like a 5-season kind of deal, but limited. And who would I have directed? That's a really tough question.
Who's your champ right now? Just today.
I mean, part of me, it would be like, what would Soderbergh or Spike Lee do with it? That would be, you know what I mean?
Which era of Spike?
You know,
like if you could switch it up, if you're like, I would take Spike right after this movie.
I gotta say, like, were those back to back? No, there was like 1 or 2 films between. I feel like Do the Right Thing and Malcolm X Spike for me are peak Spike. I think
Malcolm X Spike is untouchable.
Yeah, like that.
Oh man,
that I mean, and it's like a super long movie where I don't have any qualms with the length. You know, like I feel like everything is operating. I don't know if he said this in some interview, but like it's funny how what you do before leads up to what you do at the moment. And it was like, you know, he had the musical sequences of She's Gotta Have It, right? He had done, you know, obviously he always had some politics in there. You know, it worked with Denzel because I think it was after Mo Better, and it was just like this thing that, you know, even the quote unquote Spike Lee shot was probably the fucking best use of it ever when he's coming down the block with changes. I mean, come on. Like that thing was just,
That's the top, man. Like look, he's made some amazing projects, but like if someone was like, "Hey, I'm only gonna watch one Spike Lee movie," what would it be?
yeah.
I'm like, you probably should watch Malcolm X. I mean,
Right.
like, Do the Right Thing is right there with it, but the Denzel of it all, the history of it all, like it's an incomparable portrayal, man. There's been other Malcolm X's, but like, don't you have a hard time
No, there
seeing the real
haven't.
Malcolm X? Like I see Denzel when I think of Malcolm X first, and then I have to like move that over to the side and be like, that's not what he looked like.
And even, I know, even just think about that, right? Like, this was a guy universally understood to have lived the life he lived because of his, you know, light-skinned nature. But this guy was so good that we were just like, Malcolm X brown skin.
What's crazy is that like that would have been the moment that there's a great like accumulation thing, like the idea that Spike Lee had so much, like he had so much currency with his audience that it wasn't questioned. And you look at to your point about like, you are the sum of the things that were like, the movie is the summation of what he was just doing. It's like, he just had the trust at that moment. And so if anyone else had done that, I think it would have been a big issue. I think it would have come up, you know?
Yeah.
Certainly nobody would do that now, you know, but it's Spike and Denzel, and you're in love with both of these men. And it's like, it's a play. Who cares? They're giving us the best play.
Even the creative character, the kind of amalgamated character that he played himself, you know, like, I was like, yeah, that works. That's what you, that's what you should have done.
Representation of this pimp side of his life that absolutely isn't a thing. But it was still, I love, it's that thing that I think we all, certainly in the director writer bag chase, right? Which is like, it still felt like a Spike Lee movie. You know, even Inside Man still felt like a Spike Lee movie, and it's so commercial. You know, it's such a shift of convention from his career, and yet he was smart enough to be like, my dolly shot's still gonna be in here, and the score is still gonna be important. And like, you know, people don't realize like Spike started using Lemon Anderson then. Lemon Anderson is like one of the prisoners. Yeah. And Lemon Anderson is eventually writing on the She's Gotta Have It show.
Right. How dope
years
is that?
later, like these are the things that like you pick up on once you're in the business of it, and you're like, the dots, but you start to see how people move. And now I think what I think about the most, especially like post-strike, post-pandemic, where like we only have so many choices to make about the kind of career you're going to have, is watching those people move like that. I'm like, what's my version of moving that way? How do I nurture talent that wants to work with me over and over again? How do I help a Denzel become a Denzel? How do I build up a crew that wants to work for me over and over again, even though I can't pay them what other crews can pay them? Right. And it's like this, you know, a little bit of being a visionary, a little bit of being good to your people, a little bit of loyalty, a little bit of clarity of vision, and a sense of like, hey, I know my taste. Even if I do 2 movies that people don't like, and then one that they like, and a movie that people said was bad, and then a movie that everyone said they loved. And like Spike, like Jordan Peele, for example, like you can have whatever opinion you want of Jordan's catalog, but my favorite thing about him and about Spike is I just want to see him try. I don't really care if it's a win every time. I like seeing him ball. You know, I went to see Nope, I've seen it 3 times. I'm not even going to say if I like it or not. I've seen it 3 times. I just like seeing him fucking swing. Because it's interesting every single time. And that's what I want for my own shit. It's like, regardless of the genre, regardless of what it is, when I'm up to bat, I want people to be like, let's see what he does. Right. You know?
Yo, that's like literally, I'm not going to say nothing else. That is a graceful dismount. Yeah, that's it, man. Well, look, man, I can't thank you enough. I know you've taken time out of your writing day, very apropos to do this.
I told you, I've been wanting to do this for a minute. Every time you posted a clip, I was like, when is he going to ask me?
You know, I'm learning now too. Like in the beginning, I'm like, there's certain people I was like, I'm a little hesitant to reach out to, but now I'm like, let me just go through the
This is
Rolodex
the kind of
of the
shit you want to
people.
do. You don't want to do the
Yeah,
regular press, but like artists talking, bro,
yeah,
everyone's gonna say yes to this. This is fun. You know what I mean?
yeah, man.
This is the campfire shit that we don't get to do as much anymore once people spread out.
Right. Yeah, especially too, since you do a job, you have 4 brief meetings, and then
And you're off.
you get a vibe from it, but then you move on, and that was it. So
Yeah, I know
it's
everything you're
always
directing on from Instagram. I'm like, he
a,
posted another slate. He's on this show. He posted another slate. He's on this show.
it, yeah, man. So no, it's good to actually get to know more about the journey and the process, man. And
Yeah,
hope we get to do it again.
What's up, people? This is Pete Chatmon. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter via @PeteChatmon. Follow the pod on IG via @Let'sShootWithPeteChatmon, and hit up our mailbag with questions, suggestions, or hey, donations if you're feeling like it via let'sshootwithpetechapman@gmail.com. And just in case you need to know how to spell it, that's Pete with the last name Chatmon. Let's Shoot with Pete Chatmon is produced and edited by the multi-talented cut creator Tristan Nash, assistant produced by the young mogul Jada George, and features the wonderfully gifted Kelly McCreary as our announcer. It's written by yours truly, but I mostly come up with these questions on the fly, which you've probably noticed. Go ahead and get your podcast swag via PeteChatmon.com and leave a review on iTunes if so inclined. That shit matters. Let's Shoot with Pete Chatmon is sponsored by Scriptation. Scriptation makes it easy to go paperless on set, increase your productivity, and save hours of time. Let's Shoot listeners get a special discount on Scriptation Industry Pro. Go to scriptation.com/Pete to learn more. All right, thanks for listening, y'all. Tune in next week for our interview with director Rebecca Asher. Rebecca has directed episodes of Grace and Frankie, Blackish, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Dead to Me, This Is Us, The Good Place, High Potential, and more. And we're going to chat about her journey from script supervisor to director and make a few pit stops along the way of our conversation. In the meantime, stay safe, spread love, and keep creating.